Welcome back. You're listening to Motivation Minute, where we unravel the timeless truths in that stack of books you've been wanting to read so that you don't have to. This week's book is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And for this book, we've got Jariah Miller returning, and we have a guest.
Yeah, hey Spencer, how's it going? Good to be back. And yeah, we do have a special guest for this episode, a really good friend of mine who actually I think is probably the most knowledgeable about this book, or at least a lot more knowledgeable than me. So welcome to the show, David.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, you guys are generous. I've read it a couple times, but I'm by no means an expert on it. It would take years to get to that point. But
I know that you listened to the audiobook like 4 times while you were trucking on the road, and you've also read the book. And right now, as I'm looking here, you have a whole bunch of notes that you wrote with, if I'm not mistaken, a fountain pen.
Yeah.
So you
Wow, that's professional.
You put a lot of dedication into just writing the notes, and they're like very precise. So I can tell you put a lot of thought into this book. But how did you hear about the book, and what made you want to read it and everything?
Honestly, I don't remember where I first heard about it, but I remember hearing the name when I was growing up, and I think Dave Ramsey actually mentions it quite a bit, and I've listened to some of his stuff. And once I picked up a copy from a thrift store or something, I started reading it, and just got a couple pages in, and then I had to buy the audiobook because I was driving a lot. And man, the stuff in here is just incredibly deep. It's really a workbook, and it has a bunch of exercises in it, so it's not like you're going to be able to just think certain thoughts and suddenly be rich. There's actually work that goes into it, but it teaches you step by step everything that you need to do to change your thought patterns into a productive state.
Yeah, and we won't nearly be able to go through everything today. Like, we're gonna have to just try to get the main points.
It's an incredibly complex book, but today we want to give you guys kind of a sneak peek at it, more or less, and give you an idea of what's in the book. There will be some principles you'll be able to start putting into action today.
Nice.
And then we definitely recommend you get the book and actually go through it yourself.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
That's what we recommend with all our books, is to actually go and read them if you want. Of course, you can listen to the podcast. That's a shortcut, It's a little bit easier to get everything that way. But
so
cool.
What's really interesting about this book, I thought, was the title. So it's Think and Grow Rich, and you think that's easy. It's Think and Grow Rich. It's not that easy after you read the book. It's not just like thinking and money just shows up on trees around you. It's literally the way you think that's super important, and it's not as simple as think harder. It's how do you think over a long term, strategically, in a really in-depth sense for the thing you want.
Oh yeah, and there's actual principles of how to think, or like he talks about principles like faith, desire, autosuggestion, specialized knowledge, the power of the subconscious mind. A whole bunch of this isn't a modern cheesy success book like we were just talking about, right, Dave? Or it came out in 1937 when Napoleon Hill wrote it, and it's actually sold 70 million copies, which is more than Harry Potter,
Staggering.
Which only sold 50 million compared to this. So it's crazy that it's been around that long, and it was like one of the first self-help, like the power of visualization or how to be successful, whatever books ever. It was way ahead of its time.
And it's still on your top 20 business book lists today.
Pretty much everybody's list. Yep. And Napoleon Hill interviewed people, or what are some of the people that he interviewed, Dave?
Well, let me just flip open the book here and find the list. But there were he studied the habits of these successful people and got their input on everything in the book, and put into the book their steps and their guidelines for how they thought and things like that. So it was Henry Ford. The list is long, but there's a lot of the names I don't recognize. But there's Wilbur Wright. There's a Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller, Thomas Edison. He was very close with Thomas Edison. There's Woodrow Wilson, William Howard Taft, so presidents. Dr. Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the telephone. The list just goes on. It's incredible.
Wilbur Wright is one of the Wright brothers.
Right.
That's crazy. He talked to all those people. They were still alive.
Charles M. Schwab.
Wow.
Theodore Roosevelt. It's just incredible.
They all contributed to the book or gave him their perspective, and he took all of them, their ideas. But basically, there was like a consistent thing that they talked about, right? All of them had in common, right? Kind of like, and that's what he put into the book. And it's very interesting, some of the ideas of how to go from just thinking something to actually, to doing it. And it sounds, it sounds like a scammy or something. It's like, that idea people think of as not true. It's like, you can't just believe something and then it'll happen. But it turns out, if using
it's the way you
the correct method. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And this book is like, we should probably just jump right into the steps of kind of how he outlined how you could do this. First step was you fix your mind on the exact, now he brings up money, but it's the exact amount of money you want. It could be anything, really. This principle works for just about anything you would be wanting. So fix your mind on the exact amount you want. Determine what you'll give for it. Set a date for when you want to possess it. And then create a plan and start immediately on that plan. And then you write out all these things that we just said and read that twice a day.
So it's the idea of being extremely specific on what you want and writing like an extremely clear plan.
Because we aren't specific usually is the problem.
Apparently that's what those successful people did, right? And we think it's just like, they just got lucky, Henry Ford or the Wright brothers. But I read a book on the Wright brothers. They had a dream, a plan, like everything, like 10 years or 5 years before they ever built the plane, or they were working on it for. It's not like they just stumbled onto something. They had to. It was crazy.
They had that in mind.
It takes an incredible amount of persistence.
Yeah. So that's the idea of having like one major definite purpose or goal. Or what did you learn about that?
So chapter 1, the title of the chapter is Desire. So it goes on to describe specifically a burning desire. To achieve anything in life, you have to have a burning desire to achieve it. So the emotion of that desire is what's going to give your thoughts power, right? So your thoughts will travel into your subconscious operating system, so to speak, that dictates how you react to certain things, the things that you think about, how you talk to people, how you handle things that come into your life and opportunities. And you want to reprogram your subconscious mind so that you're able to capitalize on the opportunities that show up at your door and even find and pursue new opportunities that you would not otherwise be able to. So burning desire for your objective is the first step. It's what you have to have. And later in the book, he talks about how to actually program your subconscious. And the basis is you can repeat its auto-suggestion, the chapter on auto-suggestion, which we'll get to. But it has to be mixed with emotion. So when you tell yourself something, like you can wake up every day and tell yourself, hey, I'm going to be successful. But it's not going to affect your subconscious unless it's mixed with emotion, a strong emotion. So
which is the desire, right?
Exactly. So you can use desire. Faith, obviously, is something that also basically there has to be an emotion attached to the message that you're trying to feed your subconscious in order for your subconscious to believe it.
Yeah, it has to be
on the faith theme, it's like seeing yourself, envisioning yourself having that thing you're desiring ahead of time, and all the emotions you'll have when you have it, thinking of them ahead of time, so that feeds that auto-suggestion loop that the book talks about.
So it's the method of how do you have the emotions. How do you develop the faith, right? Because to do anything, I feel like you have to have a lot of like deep emotional desires for something if you're going to achieve something great. Like you have to really want it, or you have to, like they talk in sales about, you have to make them, they have to agitate the problem for the customer and make them really feel the pain of not having it, whatever. So it's just like that principle of having a lot of emotion towards a big goal. Like, I've experienced that. I feel like that's what's driven me in the past to do some things. But I guess, how do you actually get that, David? The emotion or the desire, for something.
Well, you have to start out by wanting something. You have to start out by being in a place where you're like, okay, where I'm at is not good enough, and I want to get to this objective. I want to get to, and you have to actually fix the objective in your mind first. So for an easy one to do is to say, hey, I want to have a net worth of $1 million. So you have to create a burning desire in yourself for that. And then he outlines in the book, you sit and you think about it every night. You read your list of everything that you're going to do to achieve it, what you're going to give in exchange for whatever, and the time you want it by, and then you sit there and you visualize it in your head. What is it? And you visualize what $1 million looks like to you, whether it be investment properties, whatever, and you
what you're going to do with it.
Exactly, what you're going to do with it. You imagine yourself.
You make it
you use your imagination. Exactly. And you feel what you expect it to feel like. It's all in your imagination, and then that travels into your subconscious belief system.
And then you use auto-suggestion, and that's the kind of the method of auto-suggestion, is doing that. Interesting.
Right, chapter 3 is on auto-suggestion.
Because it builds a loop that gets you to automatically go back to that emotion you have with the thing and encourage you to keep pursuing it.
Kind of like building a habit, right? Or doing it often enough to where you automatically think of that all the time. And yeah, it said it has to become a thought that fills up enough space in your mind to where you're not thinking about other distractions as much, or the doubts or whatever. You have to develop enough faith, or to where that one desire you have is right there on the top of your mind at all times. And honestly, you have to become obsessed with it in a sense. Like it has to be some form of an obsession. I think it can be healthy in a way, and it has to be. You can't just force yourself, really. That's not sustainable to have a goal and then try to I have to do this, and then it's a huge burden. I mean, it is a burden, but if you have that emotion and that burning desire, and maybe it's because you're I think in some ways it could be because you don't, you could have a big fear of being a failure or something, that causes you to have that emotional desire. But yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
I think the premise of this book is that the subconscious mind manifests your belief systems into your life. So if you subconsciously believe yourself to be basically just poor, you can want to be rich all you want, but if you believe yourself to be a poor person, that's going to manifest all around you. We all know people that believe, exactly, they feel rejected, and so people just reject them, and that's because of their subconscious belief system. It actually attracts what your subconscious holds to you. So if you have fear in your life, a lot of times you'll actually attract what you're afraid of, and it'll happen to you. So somebody can be terrified of cancer. I read this story. This lady was just absolutely terrified of cancer, and she wore sunscreen every single time she went out into the sun, and she always exfoliated her face, whatever, and she ended up at a young age getting skin cancer. And so her son said, screw it, I'm not even gonna try. I'm just gonna enjoy my life. I'm not gonna worry about it. Whatever happens, happens. And he ended up living to be an old man, never got skin cancer.
Interesting.
So what your subconscious believes is what happens in your life. So the point of this book is to program your subconscious to actually bring the right things into your life.
Interesting.
And
so
that point about programming, see, that's the thing. We're focused on the negative, like you were saying.
Right.
And if we get focused on the positive, that's not the natural thing, because we're able to stay up at night with anxieties, but when do you stay up at night envisioning what you want your life to be like?
Right.
Like, that's not what you usually do. You spend all your time worrying.
Yeah,
if
that
you were
has
to
to be
take
very
that time to make it
intentional.
positive.
Yeah, it has to be very intentional. And so, this what you were just talking about, David, gets into some deep, psychological stuff. And I think we know that, or we've heard of the things with with people who are, who are lonely or whatever, depressed, or believe they're not worth anything. They will actually push friends away or push away opportunities, or they'll actually manifest that in their life, whatever they believe. And that's pretty commonly well known, that you do that. But when it comes to other things in your life, like generating wealth, it's interesting that it's the same principle, just like you were saying, that whatever you believe to be true about yourself or whatever, or reality, is what's going to happen eventually. Like, it's that. And the scary thing is that happens without us even realizing it. Yeah. Whatever we unconsciously believe. So if we unconsciously think that, just let's say rich people are evil, or that money's bad,
Right.
or it's greedy, or of course I'm never going to be wealthy, or it's too difficult, or whatever. Like if we just believe that, and it's kind of subconscious, that's what's going to happen to us, or we're not going to get anything. Of course we won't get wealthy. Of course we won't make money if we believe that, right? I mean, it seems obvious, but it's also like, so that means that you can control what you achieve by thinking the right things, thinking the positive things, or the intentionally forcing yourself to believe something and create a desire.
And there's
So
a
it's
deadline. It's now. Because the book had a quote, life is like playing checkers against time. Time will wipe you out if you procrastinate and don't act. And so if you don't start acting now on those positive things, then they're just not going to happen. There's not the time later to build that in.
Exactly. Wow. What was that story in the book, Dave, about the author of this book's his son? Maybe you could talk about that briefly. What happened there?
Basically, this he uses this as an example for evidence that this concept does work. That you program literally, if even something that seems impossible, if you program your subconscious to believe it, nature will find a way to make it happen, to make it reality, is what he says. So, so he had a son that was born without ears. He didn't even have an opening in his skull where his ears should have been. So the doctor examined him and said, "Hey, your kid's never going to hear, and he's never going to speak." And Napoleon Hill said, "I do not accept that. I do not accept that. I believe firmly, with a burning desire, that my son will hear and he will speak like a normal child." So he started, a little bit later, he found out that the kid could hear a little bit if you yelled at him, like really close range. And then he started developing, they got a record player, and the kid could hear better when he like clamped his teeth down on the edge of the record player. And they found out later about bone conductivity of sound, and so it makes sense. So he went through this life teaching this kid. He found if he spoke with his lips touching the kid's head, the kid could understand him better. So he told the kid stories designed to make him believe in himself, and that, hey, his liability here, or his disability, is actually going to prove to be a great asset to him in life. And he programmed that into his child's mind. And
intentionally from the
beginning, he would tell him stories intentionally designed to program this kid's mind. And when his kid was 7 years old, his mom never let him go out on the street and sell newspapers and stuff. Older brother was allowed to, but this kid's deaf. He's not going to be able to hear a car, whatever. The kid snuck out of his bedroom window and went and borrowed 6 cents from the grocery store down the street, bought newspapers, went out on the street and sold out because he had no ears. People felt bad for him. So he sold out, went back several times to restock, and paid back the grocery store at the end of the day. And his parents came back and found him laying in bed asleep with 42 cents in his hand. And it was the most, it was super touching for me, actually, because this little kid, the mother was crying and she was freaked out, oh, my little baby went out on the street and whatever, was in danger. But the father was so proud because he saw in his son the ability to capitalize on something that other people would see as a disability, as a disadvantage. And then eventually, long story short, the kid ended up being given some kind of a advanced, at the time, hearing aid that used the concept of bone conductivity rather than just amplifying sound. And it changed his life. He was able to hear, he was able to speak, and he became a sales rep for this company, and they started a school for deaf people, teaching them how to speak. And with this hearing aid, this kid became extremely wealthy in this specialized area because of his disability. And so it all manifested in his life. Everything came true. He was able to speak and hear. And the doctors said even afterwards, even with his hearing aid, he shouldn't be able to hear because he literally has no eardrums. He has no way of hearing. No. But somehow he's able to hear and he's able to speak. So the power of belief is incredible.
Right. Interesting. And that would have never happened if he would have if you wouldn't have had that goal, that vision for his son from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? And created that. It's amazing.
That is. Yeah, it brings to so the whole book is eye-opening because you realize how much you probably, like for myself, I have a ton of goals, but I have no deadline with them, and I'm not serious about making them a reality every day. It's because there's other things that, take priority, and the goals end up going on the back burner, and they never come forward. And what this book kind of shows is it's that you have to actually engage with that thought process starting now, whether you think that it's going to make a difference or not. It's the act of, consciously thinking about this goal and making it part of you, making it who you are, that actually brings it into existence what wasn't there already. It's
true.
A powerful tool that I got a lot of work to do on it.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Me too.
I have a lot of work. Like, I've written down goals in the past, and I think if I wouldn't have never written down goals and stuff, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at now. But I haven't went back and reviewed them or wrote them down consistently. Like, I've always actually surprised myself. Really surprised myself when I go back and look at some of the goals that I've made in the past. And it's like, wow, I totally forgot about the goal, but I actually did a lot of the goals that I wrote down. And I didn't, and it felt difficult at the time. So basically, there is something, and for me, it's almost harder to understand because it's like, it doesn't necessarily even make logical sense, that writing down goals and can actually change or will make you do something, but it actually works. It's interesting. And if we actually, like we said, if we continually write down goals and say them to ourselves every day, and the goals might change, but like if we continually wrote them down, and it'd be amazing what we could actually achieve. Like if we had control of because like we write down some goals, then we forget about them, and then we get into other thoughts, and we always get discouraged or whatever. But I think if we consistently looked at our goals, and we'd stay way more on track.
Absolutely. Writing down your goals, and he says to put them somewhere where you see them every single day.
Yes.
And you read them every single day so that it's constantly at the forefront of your mind, and then it goes into your subconscious mind after a while. And I actually have a personal story in that. So I was pretty deeply in debt, somewhere around $35,000 a couple years ago, just from things coming up that were out of my control. And I was driving truck at the time, so I taped a piece of paper onto my dash with the exact amount that I owed. And every single day I'm driving down the road and I'm looking at that. I can't stop.
Look at that number. Wow.
And I hate it. It's creating this burning desire in me, like he talks about. And my focus was, I didn't have a specific date, because in trucking it's kind of unpredictable, right? You might have a really bad month or whatever. But I just had the burning desire, and I had that as my indomitable desire of my heart to be debt-free. I hated it, so I had this strong emotion, and it was constantly at the forefront of my mind. And so every time I'd make a payment, I would cross out the old number, write the new one. And I went, in 2 years, things changed for me, and I was completely debt-free by last spring. So it's incredible how having something on paper in front of you, constantly feeding your burning desire, will actually motivate you. And I can't really explain how it worked, but it just came together in a way that before I was writing down this number that I owed, it seemed like I just never had the money for it. But when it was right there staring me in the face, I was able to prioritize it more.
Yeah.
And it absolutely works.
Wow.
I was thinking about a similar thing. So with money, in a similar vein, I had this note that someone wrote me. There was an encouraging letter at one point, and I think I got it a year ago or something. Well, it ended up in the back of the closet because I read those things once and then they're gone because I'm like, well, I don't want to get all, excited about myself, whatever. I just want to keep pushing for what's next. Well, I pulled it out again a couple weeks ago, and I left it on my desk for a while, and I would read it every time I walked by. And it was actually encouraging to read it because usually you're like, I don't believe this, that someone likes this about me or whatever. But it actually was encouraging to read it again because it makes it part of you the more you internalize it.
Yeah.
And it makes you like, I want to be like that. Even though, I mean, like the note saying you are, it's like, well, I want to agree with what they think I am like.
Yeah.
And so it's even more than money. It's like even with how you think about people, about relationships, about things.
Totally. Yep. Consistently going over the same information.
Absolutely. I like how you said you internalize it, and that's so true. What you fix your eyes on, you become. And we've all heard that, what you look at, you become. But it's actually so true. When you consistently fix your eyes on something, you internalize it, like Spencer was saying, and it becomes a part of your internal operating system.
Yeah, it's like you actually, in a sense, not brainwash, but in a good way, totally change your thinking to make you think in a totally different way, or to change its mindset. And it's stuff that we hear all the time. Oh, your mindset, but it's true. It's it changes how you think about things, and it makes you believe it's possible. Which is like, if you don't believe it's possible, how are you ever going to do it? Of course, you're not going to. You're never going to do anything if you don't have something to aim at and believe it's possible, or like, so you have to have at least some faith and a direction you want to go.
And
Otherwise,
brainwash is a pretty good word for it, because it's actually like making it who you are against your will, is how you're doing it in some cases.
You have to force it because it doesn't come natural.
Right.
And if you don't do that, you're going to lapse into the negative, like we were talking about earlier, because that's what our default is. But so in a sense, you're brainwashing yourself positively, because otherwise you'll just get brainwashed no matter what, with the negative that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
otherwise,
you
will get brainwashed unconsciously by all the negativity and other people in your life.
Right.
All the losers or whatever, they're telling you, oh, you can't do that or whatever. That those are gonna, even without you even wanting that to happen, that will change your mind and cause you, and you think you're not brainwashed, but we all have a mindset that was developed from our life experience and from other people, and so we are actually a product of our environment. And that can change if we're very, very intentional. Otherwise, it's not going to change.
Right. It takes work. And again, go ahead, Spencer.
Oh, and it reminds me of the power of positive thinking, where it starts with how you start your day, with being grateful. And that can totally change. Like, that's not your natural first thought. But if you can make that your first thought, that kicks off a bunch of dominoes in the right direction that day, so that you can think positively and think about the right things for Think and Grow Rich, that kind of concept.
Yeah, very much so.
Definitely.
There's back to this premise that what is in your subconscious actually will present itself and will shape the world around you. Your subconscious will shape the world around you. You think about somebody that's always depressed, right? And bad things just happen to them, and you feel bad. You're like, man, this person's just got the worst luck, because it's like, man, I don't deal with all that crap. Like, there's so many things that happen to them that's just like terrible. And it doesn't happen to me. It doesn't happen to these other positive people around. And then sometimes you see a person that's just incredibly lucky. And if you look at somebody that's just got like good break after good break in life, a lot of times they're incredibly positive. And human nature is to think, well, I'd be positive too if I had all those good things happening to me.
Right, we do it out of order.
Which came first? Exactly, chicken or the egg there. So it's actually, if you look at your life, just analyze the people around you, and you'll see the benefits of this, or you'll see the fruits of this actually presenting themselves in other people's lives.
Yep. I've seen in people who struggle with being lonely, and then they somehow manage to push everybody out of their life through different ways. And it's weird how it works. It's like, wait a minute, you need the friends the most, but you're pushing everybody out of your life because you feel like you're not good enough. And then the opposite is true. People who just have confidence in themselves, believe in themselves, don't care what people think, they'll generally have the most friends because they have a positive view of themselves and believe they're a good friend or whatever. It's just and that can be applied to any area of your life. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, cool.
Well,
hey, we're at about the right time here.
Yeah, do you have anything
You guys
else?
got the main things in?
David?
There's
so much. We just
so
barely,
much more.
We barely
There's a couple
covered
barely
it.
things.
Scratch the tip of the iceberg.
I feel like there's some other major points that we should kind of touch on and just throw in like a little bit of.
All right.
So one thing he says is that knowledge is only potential power. You can have all the knowledge you want. Look at a library, or a college professor, right? Yep. College professors don't make that much money. They've got incredible knowledge, but they're not putting it into action in their lives in a way that benefits them financially, really. That might not be the greatest example. It might get me some fire.
Well, also, like it said, it's knowledge is only potential power. So potential is actually not even a good thing. Potential is nothing.
It's worth
we
nothing.
think it's, you have a lot of potential. Well, everybody has potential. And we think we need to maintain our potential and all our potential options. But just because you have a good potential, that's not valuable. You need to actually pick one thing and have a goal, which is what the whole book is about, and sacrifice, all the other possible opportunities.
Yeah, you don't become smart by just standing outside the library. You become smart by, or letting it come in by osmosis. It's like you have to actually dig in yourself and figure it out. Put that effort in.
So, and once you acquire the knowledge, you have to actually apply it. You have to act on it, or it is just completely worthless. So that's why going to college and I'm not sure what I'm going to college for. I'll figure it out when I get there, is a horrible trap. You have to actually have a goal in mind. And his point is pick a goal and then educate yourself with the knowledge that you need to accomplish that goal. And so that way you're always going after your objective.
Totally. Wow.
Yeah.
Compile. So get the idea first, and then compile specialized knowledge to execute the idea. Knowledge is the easy part. First, you have to have a burning desire and a goal.
Exactly. Yep. Knowledge is the easy part, but then from that, I guess, you
because you
should
have to know what
desire.
your goal is, which is how you get that with the knowledge.
But even to establish a goal, you first have to have the desire, right? Somehow, and then you get motivated, or then you're able to make a
desire,
goal.
then knowledge, then from knowledge you can make a goal that's actually realistic.
Right.
Well, actually, the thing is, you make an unrealistic goal that that seems unrealistic now, but.
Right.
And he talks about how it's all that, but then it's also, there's way more chapters, but and he did talk about, decision. You got to make a specific decision, but then there's persistence, and you got to stay dedicated, and it's not just as simple as imagining it in your mind, right?
Right. So it starts out with pick a burning desire, and then it goes through the rest of the book teaching you how to achieve that. So faith, auto-suggestion, specialized knowledge, imagination, organized planning, decision. So Henry Ford was quick to decide on something and slow to change his mind. It was far preferable to be quick to decide and slow to change your mind than to take forever to decide on something and then quickly change your mind. And then persistence, man, you can't say enough about persistence, but if you have, so Napoleon Hill interviewed and analyzed Henry Ford and his wife, and he said that there was not a single remarkable characteristic about them that could explain the amount of wealth and success that they had except for persistence. Wow. So the power of persistence cannot be overstated. Then you have the power of the mastermind. So if you have a goal in mind and you don't know exactly how, you don't have everything that it takes to achieve that goal, you can surround yourself with, he calls it a mastermind, but a core group of people that you can leverage other people's intelligence, other people's skills and gifts, and work together with them to get knowledge from them, and it empowers you. Thomas J. Stanley talks about that, and he says, like, the millionaires, they tend to, before making a decision, they'll talk to their accountant and they'll talk to their attorney. Before making a financial decision, they talk to their accountant and their attorney. So that illustrates this principle, the power of the mastermind. You're not doing it by yourself. You're surrounding yourself with people that have the knowledge that can help you succeed.
Exactly.
And it's worth the time because it's multiplicative. It's not addition.
Yeah.
It's not like, X plus Y makes X plus Y. It's just X times Y when you add on a mentor, because they give you so much more potential for what you can achieve.
And that's how he wrote the book, is by, if you remember, all these principles are not things that he made
just
up.
His.
This
right.
is stuff that he literally got straight from the mouth of, the Wright brothers and Thomas Edison and Henry Ford and a whole bunch of other 4 presidents. Wow. So and you think of the presidents, and you think of people like successful people like that, and you're like, oh, wow, they must have huge privileges, or they must be super lucky, or have a high IQ and whatever. But it's like, no, like they were using principles that are in this book. The visualization, the desire, all these things they used, and you can use the same things. And if you realize, like, I like this book because it shows that it's actually possible, and so there aren't any excuses. You can't just be like, oh, they were just better just because they were born better. It's like you can actually do that yourself, and it's in your control. It's not, rather than being a victim, you can actually. It's in your power.
You become powerful when you fully take responsibility for your own life. And back to Thomas J. Stanley, author of The Millionaire Mind, he talks about the millionaires being not the beautiful people. The beautiful people are the ones that are tall, handsome, educated, whatever. The millionaires are the ones that they look at the beautiful people and they're like, I can never be that, so I'm going to have to work much harder than they do to get the same results. So the millionaires, the self-made millionaires, a lot of times are not these privileged, born into wealthy families. They're the ones that start from the bottom, and they realize that they're on the bottom and that they're going to have to work harder than anybody else if they want to be successful. And that's what gives them their success.
Wow. Yeah, there's a statistic about how good-looking people will get paid, what is it, like 4 or 5% more, statistically. But the problem is, and then people say, oh, well, I'm not good-looking, or that must be a good reason why I'm not successful. But it's like, no, that would give you 5%. Do you just want 5% more money? No. Like, if you're going to be successful, that has nothing to do with it. It's going to be your own persistence and diligence. And anyway, it's just an interesting point.
And part of how you look is going to be how you feel about yourself. If you have that confidence in your demeanor, that will make you look that much better than
that's
just
where
what
you get
other people see on you.
Exactly. If getting your value from the wrong place, but
yeah. This is a tremendous book. It's power packed with so many principles. You'll have to read the full thing, because there's not nearly enough that we can cram into this short episode. We're barely covering the key points, but amazing what you can think about when just starting with thinking and how you think that matters so much.
Think and grow rich.
Yeah. And we know that one thing you think about every week is, when is the next Motivation Minute podcast coming out? And we just want you to know that you can think harder now, because the harder you think about it, the more likely it is to come out. So
I don't know about that.
Absolutely.
Maybe not quite, but you can tap subscribe, and you'll be sure to get it when it comes out every week.
Exactly. Yep. Send us or fill out our survey on motivationminute.com, and let us know if you want us to talk about a book that you want.
And Dave, thanks for coming on the show with us. How can people find you?
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. Just on Instagram, my name is David Allen Troyer. Really not out there a whole lot in things like this. Pretty much just kind of under the radar right now. Working on building some business things right now. But yeah, Instagram at David Allen Troyer.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, and if you guys enjoyed this episode, be sure to go to iTunes and leave them a positive review here. These guys are working hard, taking time out of their days to put products out there, put information out there about books that maybe some of you guys wouldn't have the time to read on your own. So go ahead and leave them some positive feedback, and that'll help them put out more content in the future.
Thanks, David.
That would be awesome. Yeah, so Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
All right, see you guys.